Okay, this is for entertainment purposes only. I am not making any accusations, any large claims. This is just a little slice of my life that I haven't shared before, that I find kind of interesting, and I am very ready to share it with you. Also, please note, I mean, listen, you clicked on the video. Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna fold and tell you a story time. So if you want to get over to a chore that you have been itching to get to, putting off, whatever, go over now. I will talk your ear off while you do it. That's the point of Wednesdays, and I love being here with you guys. Thanks for joining. I will preface this all by saying you clicked on the video, so you know. Today we're talking about this cults, and we're talking about the time that I think I might have been in, I won't even claim it to be a cult. I will say perhaps the start of what may have turned into or could have turned into a cult. That being said, I do want to be very clear with the understanding here that, like, cults are like really serious and it's nothing to joke about, and like I think there's this fascination in our culture, and it comes and goes, right? It comes in waves. I feel like maybe like 2 years ago a lot of cult documentaries were coming out and we were all watching and talking about it, and now I'm like clearly obsessed with this Teal Swan documentary that came out on Freeform. I watched it on Hulu but talked about it a couple days ago on my channel. Anyhow, like I don't want to put any lightness in the situation. It's terrible and they don't ever end well, and my heart like breaks for the families of people that, like members that were a part of it, or my heart breaks actually for the members that are in it. Like I just want to preface this. I feel like whenever telling stories or whenever talking about anything like somewhat dark and or very dark, I need to preface it with like, I'm not going into this lightly. I don't take it lightly. But my situation makes me giggle a little bit because clearly I'm here, I am safe, and I think all the people involved ultimately are safe. So prefacing it all with that, not taking the world of cults lightly in the slightest. I think we're all fascinated with it because it's so bizarre that like humans can get to this place, but it's also so understandable in many ways. I feel like, oh my God, look at her. I feel like we're all searching for like a place to belong, and we're all searching for answers, and you know, this is why clubs exist, why religions exist, why groups of friends exist, right? We're all just sort of like coming together as little like pods essentially, to understand what we're all doing here. So now with that, hold on, I need a drink. Cheers. We're folding laundry, we're telling stories. At that time I think I almost joined a cult, like, you know what I mean. I feel like this is warranted. Here we go. It's actually very fascinating to me. Obviously, like the world of cults, oh, I'm sorry, I feel like this lighting is very dark and weird. Oop. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Eventually I'm gonna get a new camera. Y'all, I've been talking about this forever. I'm too busy talking about cults right now to talk about camera work. What I'm actually, like, I'm obviously fascinated in the big time cults. It's wild to me that it gets to a place like that. Whatever. That's a very obvious conversation, and I've talked a lot about the different documentaries I've watched that I am fascinated by, and I'm sure you've all experienced that via documentaries or research or books or whatever. But what I'm ultimately very interested in are these like smaller subcultures that possibly lend themselves to cult-like habits and ultimately maybe a cult. So we're talking, there's like tons of YouTube videos about multi-level, like, I think they're called MLM. What does MLM stand for? Multi-level marketing, like, kind of schemes. So, you know, like, a friend of mine was part of the goji berry thing when goji berry hit the scene, and I remember being so turned off by his dialogue with me about it. Like, everything came back to, like, you should buy the goji berry juice. You know what I mean? But any MLM, multi-level marketing scheme feels very culty to me. But also there's other things like workout classes, right? People really fall into like the Peloton group. I am not claiming any of these to be cults, but like I see where this sort of like group think mentality comes in. And again, for so many positive reasons, we need that group think, we need community, but sometimes I think power hits the people who started these groups, started these companies, and that's when things get dark. So another very common and well-known sort of cult, not cult, but like, all right, acting studios. If you go down the rabbit hole, if you all ever want to like really dive in, I could do the research and get some information for you, and maybe this is a start of an interesting series, podcast, but like there's a lot of very well-known acting studios that have been exposed for cult-like behaviors. And I understand that, right? It's like someone starts this, they have these theories about acting, they have these theories about emotions, about, you know, success, about Hollywood, whatever. But then that person starts gaining followers and starts gaining success and money and notoriety. And then they start putting these weird limits on everything and these like to-do lists. And, you know, I think like I can see very clearly how that kind of spirals out of control and how it turns into what some people might call a cult. Again, this is all alleged. I have no proper information about it, but I'm happy to dive in if you guys want to talk more about like alleged cults, or rather even like exposed cults in common culture that we weren't even aware of. So acting classes make a lot of sense to me because, you know, actors are out here, they move out here to Los Angeles, and it's really vulnerable, and I think to really succeed, you need a community, you need support, and so I can see how that can easily be taken advantage of, if this makes sense. I feel like I'm rambling, but go with me. Anyhow, so the world of acting, I see how that kind of like lends itself in. We can talk about Scientology. I know nothing about Scientology. I have not gone down that rabbit hole of documentaries, but it's all sort of in the same vein. The story begins of when I think I might have tiptoed, or at least put a little toe into what might have been, or might have become, or could have been, could have become allegedly a cult. So, I'm born and raised here in Los Angeles. I went to UC Irvine. I studied theater. I came back to LA and I was like, I'm gonna do this. So I started auditioning. That's when I like fell into the YouTube world, and the YouTube world started spiraling, and here I am. But also alongside of that, as you guys know, I've had multiple lives, multiple parallel lives, and one of them was acting and theater acting. And so I was auditioning for theater out here in Los Angeles, you know, like small time theater, right? Like non-union theater. And one of the first gigs that I booked was a really, really cool play. And it was out here in Los Angeles, and it was sort of just like, you know, an underground show, but it's sort of, it was like kind of like this ongoing, well-known underground play. It dealt with dark subject matters. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's not necessary. It doesn't really like, whatever. Anyways, so I'm a little bit nervous because it's the first time I'm talking about this. Nothing major, guys. Sorry. Spoiler alert. Like, nothing, like, crazy happens. But in retrospect, I'm like, oh, I don't know. So anyways, the production company, which basically consists of a director, a producer, and a few, like, minions, for lack of a better term. They had been around for a while, and they had put up some productions, and they were kind of gaining this like underground fan base, right? So like they were like somewhat known in the community for being, I'm gonna say pioneers. I will give them the benefit of that. Pioneers of sort of dark, realistic, eye-opening theater, right? They were like trying to serve a purpose. They were trying to inform the uninformed about the problems that we're facing in LA that include homelessness, drug use. Like, it was just one of those like very realistic and sort of emotional theater experiences, okay? With the side of musical. Wasn't a musical, but it like had music involved. Anyways, I auditioned, I got the part, and it involved like, I feel like I'm being a little bit vague, but this was a long time ago. And it involved like a bunch of like young 20-year-olds, right? Like, we were all pretty new to the scene. We were all hungry for work, for fame, for belonging. Like, we were like the candidates for what could have been a cult. So the director was this very like elusive sort of how do I explain him? He was super manipulative. He was, I do believe he was brilliant, and I do think he had, or has, I don't know what he's doing now, a very like specific point of view, a very artistic eye. He was sort of like a little ahead of its time and sort of being like free thinking and open, and like looking back, I'm not exactly sure, but he was definitely like a puppeteer of sorts, but with like a strong point of view. Where I'm going with all of this is that like, so we were set to put up this show, and I don't remember the specifics of how long we had to rehearse, but it was such an intimate process. Nothing but like, listen, nothing illegal happened that I know of. Nothing like bad happened. Like, it was just one of those things where it was like, oh, you need to be all in or you're not in. You know what I mean? It's like, he told us what kind of diet we needed to be on. He told us like where to go, when to go. Like, it was kind of like an all-consuming thing, which if you've ever done theater, like, that really lends itself to like putting up a show. Like, it really is an all-consuming thing. And like, his thing about like what we ate in our diet was more in terms of, or at least he presented it in terms of like, hey, this is like what those characters would look like, so it would be important to sort of mimic those diets so that you appear to be authentic to these characters. So that was like fine, but like looking back, I'm like, dude, this guy was like really, really trying to sort of micromanage all of us in the cast. So much so that like, I would say 6 of them all lived together. That's where it starts to get a little like, huh? Like, so they rented this like big home in the Hollywood Hills, and they all lived together, and I don't think he had any other jobs, so I'm not exactly sure like how it was all like financially working. I never lived there, but at the time I was like, oh, this is so fun. I can go over there every day and hang out and like party it up and like talk about theater. But like, looking back at it, it's like, I don't think he paid a penny to be there, but he had the biggest room in the house. And then he basically just like had a harem of women, none of which he was like dating. I'm not even sure if what his like preference was in terms of like sexes. I don't even know if he had I don't know. He was always, again, very like elusive in terms of that kind of stuff. But I think he just liked being the center of attention and the center of everyone there and like in control. And so he lived with like these women who were a little bit older and a little bit like in need, I'm trying to like say this nicely, like in need of a connection, in need of a place to belong. And also like honestly, in my opinion, at least one of them was so much smarter. Like, I'm still mind blown why she got wrapped up in this, but like, so much smarter and more talented. But regardless, they basically just like waited on him hand and foot, and like, they would just like sit in that house and like smoke weed and like, which, listen, I ain't judging, as y'all know, but like, I don't know. There was something so bizarre about the setting of it all. Now that I step back, at the time I was like, oh my god, this is so fun. I go over to this house and I get to just like hang out with these like fun, like creative people and like get stoned and like do nothing. But now when I look back, I'm like, oh, literally, like, he was just like making these people like, I don't know, run the house for him, buy the food for him, cook for him, provide the weed for him. Like, one of the girls' moms, this was a long time ago, before like weed stores were legal here in Los Angeles. Like, one of the moms of one of the girls like grew her own. Like, the whole thing was super culty. It was super culty. Anyhow, I like was a part of it because I was young and I wanted to be in theater, and I really liked the production itself, the play itself. And I met one of my best friends, and still is one of my best friends. He like also joined at the same time that I joined, and he would confirm this with me, that we both like look at each other sometimes and we're like, were we part of a cult? Anyways, we did everything together. I mean, literally everything. We spent every like waking hour with each other, which is weird now in retrospect. Like, theater was wonderful and consuming, but it's not and shouldn't be like your whole existence. Anyways, so like, we would spend our weekends there. We would spend like everything, and we were all like not afraid. Okay, we weren't afraid of this director. I didn't find him a scary in terms of like physical threat, but we were all definitely like, that's the boss. He is on a pedestal. Don't piss him off, because you don't want to like kiss his ass because he's powerful. I don't know, man. He did like a number on our brains. Like, whether or not it was justified, I couldn't tell you. I feel like in retrospect, I'm going to go ahead and say no. It's not like he was like Steven Spielberg or something, but like, I don't know. I feel like I'm now being a little bit like stumbling over my words because I haven't really thought about this and talked about it out loud in a long time, but like, we were basically just there to like serve him. Again, nothing illegal, nothing sexual. Like, it was just more like, we were just there to like pump his ego and do whatever he wanted and like whatever he needed. And truly, he had like this harem. He even had, there was this one girl who like came from out of state, and she moved in with him, but she also moved in with her parents because she was like newly 18, and her parents were wonderful people. I actually really liked them. But like, also, what are you guys doing? Why are you all moving? The whole thing was so bonkers. So we go on, we do the play. It's all consuming, but it's also an amazing experience. And like I said, I met like one of my best friends and this and that. But then like after the play ends is when it starts to get weird, because now it's like, well, we don't have that looming over our heads in terms of like, we're not all committed to this like end goal. We already have the end goal. And so now it's, for me at least, and my friend, it was like time to move on. Like, it's time to move on. We're still friends with these people, but like, we also like need to keep going, and we need to like expand our careers, and we also need to make money. And like, the minute I showed, I'll just speak for myself, the minute I showed any sign of like, I have other things going on, or like, I can't support you right now because I have other things going on, it started to get really like not nice. And I remember I had broken up with a boyfriend, and this boyfriend was a musician. And I remember like after I broken up with him, like very publicly broken up with him, this was before I started YouTube, this director guy like hit him up, the ex, to like do some music on a different project. And I remember being like, wow. I mean, listen, that's like life, and I'm sure you've all experienced some sort of backstab like that. But I remember being like a little bit like gutted by that, where I was like, whoa, like I would never do that to you for so many reasons. Why are you contacting my ex? And then the minute I like expressed any sort of like pushback or like, you know, madness, whatever, against him, it was like the tables all turned and they all turned on me. And then they just started like saying not nice things to me because I was dating. They're like, you always have to, you always, oh, I think I brought like a date to one of their screenings of something. And then it like suddenly turned to like, you can't be alone and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was like, it went from like so family oriented and so like mushy to like going behind my back, hiring my ex to do music. I actually don't think they even paid him, just like hitting him up. And I'm sure he was vulnerable because we had broken up and he just like wanted whatever. And so like hiring an ex and then also just like going so hard on me for literally nothing. It was so bizarre. And then they just stopped talking to me. I don't know how to explain it, but then I realized that this ended up happening also to my friend in a very different way, but like similar thing where they like, if it didn't go this guy's way, they cut you off, and all of them cut you off. Like the two like harems, the two mistresses or whatever, like who, whatever, they like cut you off. The whole thing, so bizarre. And so I was always like, and then they did that to someone else I know. The same exact situation, like different stories and different details, but like the same thing. Like if you weren't worth his time or you went against anything that he said or believed, all of them just like cut you out. Like blocked you on Instagram, like the whole thing. It was like this weird like group think, but I don't even know if those girls were even thinking. I think they were just like, I don't know. And I like hate to talk poorly about them. Sometimes my heart like kind of hurts for them, but also like, come on. Like, do you need saving? Blink 3 times. The whole thing was so weird. I ran into them. I literally ran into him and one of the girls and like some other people I didn't recognize at a restaurant, and like my heart like fell into my stomach. Like I think I might have been like way more emotionally attached to them than I even realized I was, which to me like leads me to believe, well, first of all, that was like right after college when I was like in LA and I was trying to find myself. But I also really do think I was emotionally manipulated in so many ways. I feel like I'm not giving proper details, but like when I step back and examine it, and when I talk to my other friend about it, like he agrees with me. Like there's so many layers to this, and I'm so grateful that I'm here and I got out. And like, again, this is all like assumptions and alleged thoughts in terms of like cult. And if you watch this like Teal Swan documentary that I've been talking about, I'll try to leave the link below. I think a lot of these like leaders or groups, they don't mean to be cults. Like I genuinely don't think this person was like, I'm gonna start a cult. But I do think that there was some sort of weird like ego situation. Break it down any way you want, why this person was the way he was. I'm sure there's lots of psychological breakdowns about like things he didn't get in his childhood, whatever, but like he needed to accumulate these people and this power, and I definitely got wrapped up in it. So much so that I spent money on a project that I shouldn't have spent money on, that I didn't really have like, I mean, we all like give money. Like I was like Tinder swindler. I was like a victim of one of those where I was like, yeah, I'll give you money to like put me in this thing that 1 never came out, that 2 I never got credit for, the whole thing. Conversation for another day. Anyways, I guess ultimately as I finish up folding here, this is a PSA to say, if you are looking for a place to belong, Totally get it. I think that's very human. But one, it shouldn't be a place, an organization, a community where it's one person is sort of like the center of it. Like, I just am not sure. There's exceptions to all the rules, but I'm just not sure. Or rather, I think maybe that's a red flag, something to consider. Secondly, you should never have to give somebody money to be a part of something. If anyone makes you feel bad for stating how you're feeling, even in a friendship, if you aren't allowed to express yourself freely, a friendship or a relationship, you're not allowed to express yourself freely without being like kicked out, ostracized, then certainly that is not where you should be or who you should be with. And lastly, acting shouldn't be that all-consuming. I mean, theater is consuming. If you've been a part of theater, it's consuming, and I think that's why I love it so much. You kind of just like throw your whole self into it. But if you are being told how to act outside of the theater, then I would definitely check that out. Contact a friend outside of that, and just be aware of your surroundings and the people you are surrounding yourselves with. Anyways, wow! Did any of that make sense? Again, I sincerely have never like really vocalized this story out loud. I can't wait to hear from you, Mom, and your opinions on this. I mean, listen, again, I was in a very safe environment. Ultimately, I never had to engage in anything that was super scary in this situation, but it definitely was teetering and tiptoeing on possibly being very cultish. I did meet up with them before I saw them at the restaurant. Like, there was this like in-between time where I did see they had moved to another house. I don't know what happened to that first house, but they still moved into a family house, and all of them had their own little rooms, but he always had the biggest and best room, and I still don't think he's ever paid for it. That's an assumption. All this is allegedly. Don't come at me. Don't come at them. So anyways, that's my experience, my near cult experience. May I never get back to a place like that again, but I am grateful for the experience and the story and the friend that came out of it. Through weird near tragedy came a great friendship, so I will take that. Anyways, I love you guys so much. Thank you for always being a safe and fun place for me to share my experiences. I do this because I want to just like pass on, first of all, for entertainment and to keep you entertained as you do your chores, but also just like, I hope that you can walk away with like little tidbits of advice or like little nuggets of goodness that you can take with you on your journey through life. I aim to be a little older sister, not like a big time old, like let's not get crazy, I'm not that old, but like an older sister who can kind of share my experiences with you in hopes that maybe you think twice before walking down some of the same paths as me. Ultimately knowing that I'm very lucky and blessed, and yeah. So that's it. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you tomorrow. And let me know what you guys want me to talk about next time. All right, see you then. Bye.